but unless this thing turns out to be some defining part of a build or strategy for trials, I'll be moving on, much like everyone else will be in a few weeks. Don't assume what other people are gonna do in a game as varied as Destiny 2. Never! You dumbass. Hello and welcome back to another video on the Ascendant Nomad YouTube channel. I am Ascendant Nomad, and today I've got to address a big elephant in the room. You see, the first video I made of this season was a little video called The Lorentz Driver Isn't Good Enough. And that's a clown take, I'm going to be honest. That's a big L. And with me today is the chat, who are on their best behavior, saying hello. And they're definitely not about to spam lol get ran streamer. Anyways, today we're going to be I figured it'd be a good idea to actually go back to this video, which in fairness has not aged well. And I want to just go back and react to how I made it, how I talked about it, the sort of opinions and conclusions I came up with, and then just kind of think back and see what has changed over the course of this meta, the course of this long season, that has made me realize, hey, yeah, maybe I was wrong. And maybe, perhaps, in doing so, I get to assess as to how I can review weapons better going forward. So, yes, this is a reaction video, but I promise it's an educational one. And also, chat's here to clown me every single time we're back on full screen, so that's added content bonus too. So let's get into it. This exotic is going to be everywhere for a short while, but I don't see it sticking around. Nice! Good start! The Lorentz Driver is the new energy seasonal exotic linear fusion rifle. Oh my god, that's a lot of found on rank 1 on the season pass. It sort of looks like an arbalest, charges like an arbalest, takes up an exotic slot like an arbalest, and has aim assist like an arbalest. So, is it just an energy arbalest? Yes and no. It kind of is though, isn't it? Like, after 5 months with this weapon, it really has just become an energy arbalest. The big difference is that it has pre-nerf arbalest aim assistance, which kind of makes it more broken. Now, I think one of the reasons why it's prevailed instead of just the arbalest, partially because flavor of the month, partially because people are very vocal about how broken it is. I think it's got a lot to do with ease of use too. So let's keep going. This weapon has a bit of a learning curve to it if you're not used to using a linear fusion rifle. Sure. Unlike many of the people who released videos on this weapon yesterday, I'm not a god at this game, so I can't make the gun look more broken than it actually might be. That is literally because I only had 3 days with this weapon. It is so easy to play with this weapon and make it look so good. It is so easy. At this point, Nomad had not made State of the Meta video. He had not played with every single exotic, every single weapon archetype. Nomad was a bad player here. Or definitely a worse player here. And yeah, no, And whilst I believe that it's a very good weapon, as are most linear fusions in the Crucible, I really don't see it becoming a big issue. Okay, so 4 hours is not a lot of time to get acquainted to any weapon, in my opinion. If you're playing that continuously like I did and you have a lot of experience with other weapons, sure, I think that's plenty of time for you to really get the feel of it. But to get really good with a weapon, I'd say you'd have to spend upwards of 10 hours with it. Again, this completely depends on who you are and what kind of player you are. For me, I definitely wasn't perhaps as adaptable as I am now. So I think looking back on this video and looking back as to where I was as a player and when I reviewed this gun, I think 4 hours was very much just like scraping the surface, which would result in sort of the opinions that I ended up having for this video. With these first look pieces of content, I didn't just want to record one game and call it cracked or shite. I wanted to take my time with this weapon and really get to grips with it so I can give you a more accurate reflection of what this gun is and isn't. God damn it. Oh no. I said that and then I came to the conclusion that okay. Make sure that if you're going to make opinion content that it holds the test of time, because words cannot describe the sheer cringe I am feeling right now. Honestly, just the act of shooting the weapon is incredibly reminiscent of Arby. I can't pull off crazy kills from crazy distances as often, no doubt thanks to the low range of this weapon, but I can do standard Arby things with the Lorry just fine. Why did I call it Arby and Lorry? Why did I do that? What planet was that acceptable conduct to write that in the script and then actually say it and then proceed with the editing of the video, make the thumbnail, put the tags, write the description, then promote it on social media without once feeling, hey, maybe that was a bad idea. Now listen, I know I'm trying to assess my opinion on this, but invariably when you look over your own work, you will feel a lot of cringe for the way you did things compared to how you do them now. Aim assist is definitely doing a lot of heavy lifting at times. You think? But that's linear fusions in a nutshell. Overall, the lorry still requires some thought to use well, but the RV is still more forgiving. Did I really say the Lorentz Driver requires thought to use well? Did I say that? Let me revisit that. Hang on, let me listen to that whole thing again. I can't pull off crazy kills from crazy distances as often, no doubt thanks to the low range of this weapon, but I can do standard RB things with the lorry just fine. Aim assist is definitely doing a lot of heavy lifting at times, but that's linear fusions in a nutshell. Overall, the lorry still requires some thought to use well, but the RB is still more forgiving. I feel, okay, no meme, I think the paper argument was that Lorentz had less range than Arbalest, so therefore it required a little bit more effort to aim. In reality, what was going on is because I'd only played 4 hours with this weapon, and I was just sort of scraping the surface to how to actually play with the Lorentz Driver, and a combination of other factors, like I definitely wasn't as good of a player back then as I am now. It feels like somebody has misused this weapon, has played with this weapon and come to the wrong conclusions as a result of not quite fitting the playstyle that is demanded of the Lorentz Driver. And I know the obvious meme is, what playstyle? Ha 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 ha. But no, I mean, listen, there is a way to use linear fusions well, and I clearly wasn't doing it. Therefore, I drew conclusions that were clearly wrong because my playstyle was not correct, if that makes any sense. So I came up with the conclusion, the very, very, very poor conclusion, that the Lorentz Driver requires thought to use well. The same way about EM Anomaly, the black hole that spawns when you get a headshot. It does a flat 120 damage to players, so you're only ever going to get a double kill if the person sucked in already has chip damage done to them. From my observations, it looked like that 120 damage from the black hole's detonation is actually an AoE thing. So if multiple people are in close proximity after they detonate, they can sort of give damage to each other, resulting in more reliable multi-kills. This is all still accurate. I don't think they've changed anything in terms of functionality. That one was good. That part of the video is still accurate. Anytime I talk about the weapon factually, it's fine. Anytime I start giving opinions, that's when we start taking Ascendant Nomad less seriously. That being said, it is powerful enough to make you worry about it. The suck is good, and the good suck can throw you for a loop. Advice to live by. Oh, and if you were wondering, yes, you can still body shot it with high energy fire with the Charge with Light build, or with Inertia Override, which recently got a buff so it lasts 6 seconds. Yeah, imagine saying that, making that little point there about being able to body shot easily, and then titling the video, "The Lorentz Driver isn't good enough." It's like, okay, it's when you're doing a weapon review, Nomad from the past. Listen to me, Nomad from the past. When you're doing a weapon review, you cannot really just treat it from a neutral state. You cannot just say it performs like this, therefore it's like that. You cannot just say this is what it is about and leave it at that. You know, anybody can do that. The value in weapon reviews, I find, is how far can you push a weapon and how easy is it to push that weapon. With Lorentz, if you can body shot easily with Charge with Light or Inertia Override or any sort of damage buff that doesn't require a whole lot of effort for you to get, then that's a pretty good upside of the weapon. It does relate to the frame, and it relates to what it is exactly. You know, not all weapons will get that sort of benefit, but it is worth mentioning in a weapon review, and it is worth factoring into the overall conclusion. I don't think you can really talk about a weapon without talking about the potential for how high or how good it can be. Certainly if it's a bad weapon and you want to make it redeemable, you do talk about these damage perks, saying, hey, if you have this perk and this combination and this sequence of events that happen in a Crucible game, this gun might be fine for you and you might like it. But at the same time, it's like, you have to think about, can many people execute that and replicate that sequence to get to that situation? And I think in the case of Lorentz Driver, yeah, you absolutely can make it easy to use at that high ceiling. Despite all of this and what I've just said, I'm using this until I get the catalyst unlocked. I'll play with it some more, but unless this thing turns out to be some defining part of a build or strategy for trials, I'll be moving on, much like everyone else will be in a few weeks. Don't assume what other people are gonna do in a game as varied as Destiny 2. Never do you dumbass. Listen, okay, in fairness, I did move on. I moved on pretty quickly. I didn't use Lorentz. I mean, I've used Lorentz for about maybe 40, 50 hours at this point, so I know how to use it well, and I enjoy how free it is. But oh my god, like, that was projection. That was 100% projection on my part. I thought Vex was more compelling. I found other energy weapons to be more compelling. Like, I love my Adept Palindrome, so I'm obviously going to use that over Lorentz. But you could... The big thing with Lorentz that trumped everything, right, was the ease of use. Now, when I made this weapon, why? Because this is not worth using over the Vex Mythoclast. And you know, at that time, I think that was true. I think at that time, the Vex was a better weapon than Lorentz. And the Vex was everywhere in that first little part of the season. Wait, what? Why this comparison? You said it can only be compared to Arbalest. Yes, I did. Apples to apples. It's an energy Arbalest. But it's an exotic in the energy slot. And right now, it's hard to look past the Vex when you're talking about best in-slot contention. When it comes to building a cohesive PvP loadout, the Vex is just a better energy fusion / auto / linear fusion hybrid. It covers the mid-range very well, it covers off the... So the overall lethality of Vex hasn't been dialed down. What made it really, really strong back then is that after 2 kills, which were fairly easy to get, you got that linear fusion mode activated. And also the overcharge, the damage boost that came with overcharge was nuts. They've upped that to 3 kills, they've reduced the aim assist greatly on the linear fusion mode, and that sort of brought it in line with what you would expect from an infinite ammo fusion rifle. It's just a primary with an alternate mode now. A very good alternate mode, and it's still a very, very good weapon. But what they did to Vex was they added conditions to success. Before, those conditions came very, very easily. You didn't really need to try. You got 1 kill with Vex, which was fairly easy to do because it was a really strong weapon neutrally. You got that 2nd kill with Vex, which was practically free because you got a huge damage buff and a huge reduction to time to kill. Then you got linear fusion mode, and then you were popping heads. You were completely unstoppable with Vex. But with the nerf, which changed the lethality of the overcharge, which reduced the aim assist with the linear fusion mode, you made Vex harder to use at the highest level, at its absolute peak. And then what happened was Lorentz said, hey, I'm still here. You can still achieve those peaks, albeit with a special ammo weapon. You can achieve those peaks with that ease of use, with no conditions. If Vex didn't get nerfed, I think Lorentz wouldn't be anywhere right now. I think we'd still be seeing Vex, and people would be really mad about Vex. But it did get nerfed, and then Lorentz was pretty much untouched, and then it rose to become the top of the pile because it was effective, it was easy to use. Fundamentally, it was easy to use. I think that's the biggest thing. It's very, very easy to use, and it just started gaining a reputation that cannot be stopped at this point. So yeah, long range incredibly well, and pairs very nicely with SMGs, sidearms, or kinetic shotguns. So essentially, it can do everything the Lorry can do, minus the wall hacks, and then some. And honestly, at that time, that was pretty impressive because it is an infinite ammo weapon. It's an infinite ammo alternative to the Lorentz Driver. And why would you choose Lorentz Driver over Vex at the time, considering that they both basically function exactly the same? Zero says, yeah, it's a cringe take now, but when looking at what was happening back then, it made sense. So I don't think it aged badly. Instead, the only thing keeping it out of a lot of people's hands has changed. Yes, definitely. Vex was a lot harder to get than Lorentz. I mean, Lorentz was a seasonal exotic, for crying out loud. He was on rank 1. Vex, you had to do a raid. To get the catalyst, you had to do the raid again with conditions. You had to look up data guides. There's a lot more thought that goes into it. But the Lorentz was free to everybody, so everybody started using it and just started slaying out with it. And next time I do a weapon review, I will also consider ease of access to that weapon, because that is a major factor as to why weapons become meta or not. Whilst the Lorry's perks are nice to use, they're not consistent enough to pose a continuous problem. This was the L take, I feel, because I think I was trying to assess Lorentz Driver for its perks, do minus the wall hacks, and then some. Whilst the Lori's perks are nice to use, they're not consistent enough to pose a continuous problem. But the thing is like, sometimes a weapon is so good on its own, it doesn't necessarily need the perks to make it what it is. Especially in the case of exotics, because the exotics behave in a very certain way, and you cannot judge an exotic the same way you judge a legendary. You cannot account for them in similar fashions. You have to take them as a whole. You have to take the whole package, and you have to judge that package versus everything else. And one of those things is just behavioral characteristics, ease of use, accessibility, that sort of thing. And when you talk about perk package, that implies that there is an option to have different perk packages. And there isn't, because it's an exotic, and it's not DMT or Hawkmoon. So for me, I think I know where I went wrong here now. Is that I was trying to I was looking for anything to justify using Lorentz, and the fact was I couldn't find it at the time because Vex was so dominant, and also I wasn't using Lorentz properly. Unless it turns out that I've been judging EM Anomaly too harshly, I wasn't. I'm going to stick with more consistent slayers. You should have stuck with Lorentz. The wall hacks being removed and whispers floating around of Vex being meta contention. It was. Once the novelty factor dies off in a week or so, I don't expect to see the Lori in many people's energy slots. Ha! Bloody good fun in PvE though. Worth keeping around just for that. Overall, this is a pretty fun weapon to use, and I really enjoyed the aesthetic, the design, and the sound. Oh my god, the sound of this weapon is killer. But I have a hard time looking past that and considering this a very serious weapon, because it is just a fun weapon. And while... Okay, I'm good. I think we know how the video ends at this point. It's just me repeating my own talking points. Look, listen to me, Nomad. Listen here. That's an L. That's a big, fat L. You can only judge based on what you have in front of you, sure. You can only judge, when you judge a weapon, you are sort of just taking a moment in time. You're snapshotting a window in time and judging it against that window. So you have to be true to how the weapon behaves in and of itself. I mean, you should definitely add qualifiers. Hey, we're in season 16 or season 15 or season 14. These are all the top contenders at this moment. Do a relative context comparison so that when people find this video and they come and see this video again, they're not compelled to say this aged like milk. Because if you contextualize your weapon reviews, they won't necessarily be timeless, but they won't make you look like such a fool. Either way, the big takeaway for me here is spend more time with your weapons before you form an opinion on them. You're not Aztecross, who's a god, who can come up with accurate opinions of weapons just like that. You're not, you're not a Trials player. You're not a hardcore Trials player where you know exactly what's good and what's bad right then and there. You're a generalist PvP teacher. So teach us what's the best characteristics of this weapon, really. Or maybe I just won't do weapon reviews. Who knows? That was informative for me. I hope it was informative for you, and I hope you all learned something from my failure. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you all in the Witch Queen. Take care.